And in today's video, we're going to be taking a demo into RDS. So in the previous video, we had a discussion related to RDS. We had an overview what RDS is, what are the different functionalities, the different engines that are available on AWS. So in this video, let's go ahead and deploy a database on AWS. So as you guys can see, I am on the console right over here. We're going to go to the search and we're just going to type in RDS. And as you can see, the first service that pops up over here is RDS. Let's go ahead and click on that. And you can see it will take you to a page like this. So what we're basically going to do is on the left hand side, we're just going to click on databases. And as you can see, you will have no instances found because I do not have any database created. We're going to go ahead and click on create database. And here you go. This is the create database page. So you got two options that you have. You can go with either a standard create or you can go with an easy create. For this video, I will be going with the standard create so I can show you guys what are all of the options out there. So coming to the first option that you guys have to choose is your engine options. What engine option do you want to choose? Do you want to go with Amazon Aurora, MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle Postgres, SQL Server, or IBM DB2? For this example, I am going to stick to Aurora, and we're going to go down, and you can see your engine version over here. We're going to stick with the default version that is being provided by AWS. Of course, if you go ahead, you can see various different versions available, but for this, I am going to stick to the default version that AWS populates for us. Now, is this going to be a production related database or is this going to be a dev or test related database? I would say go ahead and choose dev and test, because when you do deploy this database, you will be charged for it, and productions are again for more high availability and that are pretty fast and consistent. But again, we're just doing this for learning. So I'm just going to change this to dev and test. Now you can provide your cluster identifier, your DB name. Basically, I'm just going to stick it as the default, that is database-1. What is going to be your master username? So this master username is going to be used to log in into your database. Okay. So you can change this to whatever you want. I'm just going to stick to the default because I'm not looking to log into the database. I'm just looking to create a very basic database. Now, you got two options how you can manage the credentials, wherein you can choose managed in AWS Secrets Manager, again, which is the most secure. We have not discussed about Secrets Manager as of now, but yeah, you can say that this is another AWS service out there, or you can do self-managed. Now, if you do self-managed, it will ask you to create your own password and confirm your password. Now remember, you guys will need to make sure that you remember whatever this password is. Okay. If you choose RDS Secret Manager, AWS manages everything for you and it's basically highly secure. So I'm just going to go ahead and give a very basic, password. Maybe we can give something else. Okay, that should be good. And the password should match. And then we can go down and you can choose your storage configuration. Do you want to have a standard or do you want to have an IO optimized? So if you are having a lot of input output operations, you can go with the optimized, or if you feel that you have pretty less, transactions or queries that will be made, then you can go with the standard. For this use case, I am going to stick with the standard, and then you can see your instance configuration. You have multiple different types of instances that you configuration you can choose. You can go with serverless, you can go with memory optimized, burstable classes, or optimized classes. I am going to choose serverless for this option. I would recommend you guys to choose serverless too, as it will be pretty cheap if you are planning to deploy this for a couple of hours. And then you can choose your capacity range, which is the how many Aurora capacity units do you want to have. So you can have a minimum capacity and a maximum capacity. And I'm just going to keep the defaults that are there. And then this is something that is pretty important, that is availability and durability. Now, in a multi-AZ deployment, do you want to create Aurora replicas, or do you want to create an Aurora replica or read a node in a different availability zone? Now, we haven't discussed about replicas as of right now, but this is something that is pretty neat and something that I really like about RDS and especially Aurora. So either you can say that no, I don't want to create any Aurora replica, or you can say that yep, I want to create an what do you say, Aurora replica, or maybe a read replica, but in a different availability zone. So this helps you to have more availability. Now you have connectivity. Do you want to connect it do you want your RDS to be connected to an EC2 instance, or you don't want it to be connected to an EC2 instance? And what's the network type? Do you want to go with an IPv4, or do you want to go with a dual stack mode that means both IPv4 and IPv6? Of course, you can choose if you want to deploy this in a different VPC altogether. What's the VPC, subnets, and all of those good things. Again, this is pretty important. And the reason why this is very important is because if you're planning to connect to your database through a local, software, if you provide no, you will not be able to connect to your database through the public IP address. You will have to say yes. So RDS will basically assign a public IP address to your database, which will allow you to connect it through applications outside your cloud or through your local computer for development purposes. And then, of course, you can choose your security groups. You want to choose an existing one, or you want to create a new one. you know if you want to deploy this in a specific availability zone, you can go ahead and choose that. Again, I don't want anything. You also have the functionality to enable RDS proxy. We haven't discussed about RDS proxy yet, but we will be coming to it, and this is pretty good to help you reduce your costs. And of course, your CA, that's your certificate authority, which is again optional, and I'm going to leave all of that as default. And of course, you have your tags and authentication. Monitoring, you can choose your monitoring. Normally the 7 days is under the free tier, so if you do, what do you say, plan to have monitoring, then choose 7 days for the same. And then we can go ahead and look into our additional configurations. You can choose your initial database name, your parameters and all of those good stuff. What's your backup retention period that you want to back up your database up to 7 days? Do you want to also copy tags to snapshots? Again, we haven't specified any tags for this specified database instance, but if you do, then those tags will also be copied over. And another really important thing is enable encryption. Um, I would always recommend to make sure that encryption is enabled for your database, because if you're planning to create any read replicas or Aurora replicas, then you would need encryption to be turned on. And if you created a database that does not have encryption, then you will not be able to create any replicas. And another pretty neat thing is that if your database is encrypted, any snapshots that are created of your database will also be encrypted. So when you try to, for any XYZ reason, you got to restore back to your database, and if you restore back from an encrypted snapshot, you'll be, what do you say, creating a database that is already encrypted. And then you have all of your other basic stuff, and we can just go ahead and click on create database. And as you can see, it says your password is invalid because it should not contain any one of these symbols. So I'm just going to go ahead and change my password, and that should be good. And we can try this again. There we go. Let's scroll all the way back down, and let's click on create database. And here you go. I think it is creating our database. Let's give it a couple of seconds. It does take up oh, there we go. It says it is creating our database, and it gives you a pop-up with, suggestions to add on, but we're not going to look into these suggestions for now. And as you can see, your database is being created. Let's quickly go ahead and click on refresh, and we can still see that our database dash one and our database instance one is being created. You can go ahead and you can see when you're going to open up your database, you'll be able to see your various different properties. First coming to be connectivity and security. You can use these to connect to your database. Now, this is your writer endpoint and this is your reader endpoint. So you have two different endpoints for two different purposes, which is pretty neat. Um, as you can see, it defines what's the writer endpoint, what's your reader endpoint. So if you have an application, like for example, let's take a reports application. Now, this reports application generates reports and it does not need to write to the database. So instead of providing the endpoint of the writer, you can just give the reader endpoint and let it read data from your database. And we can quickly go ahead and click refresh again. As you can see, it successfully created database one. And then if you have any IAM roles that were attached, you can do that, or you can also add IAM roles to this. You can share your DB cluster with other AWS accounts across your organization. And if you have connected any EC2 instances, they will be populated right up over here. You can also set up a Lambda connection, which is pretty neat. And this proxy relates to RDS proxies. Again, as mentioned, we haven't discussed about it yet, but we will pretty soon. And we can go to monitoring. You can look, it will show you all of your CloudWatch related. Again, as our database is just deployed, we won't be having anything to see. Any logs and events that took place. You can add auto-scaling policies. If X ACUs have been used, then you want to auto scale it, or whatever your criteria is. Any recent events that took place. So we did create our database, hence why we have that. You can go to configurations. You can view all of your configurations right over here. You can do your maintenance and backup related stuff. Your tags, of course, we haven't provided any tags, but if you want to, you can. And any recommendations that AWS does want to provide you will be available right over here. And then we can go ahead to database one, instance one. And again, you can just see your database instance basically. And again, it gives you a pretty good overview over here, saying that what's the role, what's the engine, and which region and availability zone this database is deployed to, and what is the size. So we did choose serverless, hence why you can see serverless over here. So this is pretty much about it related to RDS databases. How can you create a database? What are the different options and features that Amazon provides you with while creating your database? So I hope you guys did like this video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like. If there are any topics out there that you guys would like me to cover, please mention them in the comment box below. Hope you guys have a great day ahead. See ya. Take care. Bye bye.